I want to get started. What should I buy? And I said, whoa. I said, the first thing you're going to buy is nothing. When people are pulling back, pulling out marketing dollars or slowing down a little bit and retreating, that's when you need to push forward and take up that market share. And that's really exactly what I did in 2023. It costs $11.88 a month for me to use the premium version, and it has produced north of 6 figures of income for me.
On Twitter, do you get more actual sort of deal flow in business, you think, from a brokeraging perspective or a GP perspective?
My name is Omar Morales. I'm a commercial real estate broker that's closed over $3 billion worth of deals in South Florida. This gives me access to some of the most prolific real estate deal makers in not only South Florida, but also the country. My goal with the Real Estate Deal Makers podcast is to keep the conversations timely and current so you have a better understanding of where the market is today, and more importantly, where the leaders of this industry think it might be tomorrow. So let's dive into today's conversation. My conversation today is with the famous anonymous Twitter account, Multifamily Madness. He has over 50,000 followers and has brokered over 300 multifamily deals in his career. He is a #1 broker in Central New York while also syndicating deals with other operators in other markets. I learned a ton about how to grow a Twitter audience, how to be a better broker, and how opportunistically syndicating deals allows him to make commission almost tax-free. I learned a ton in this conversation, and I'm sure you will too. Now let's listen to my conversation with Dante, better known as Multifamily Madness. All right, we've got Dante here, most famously known as Multifamily Madness on Twitter with over 50,000 followers, the #1 broker in Central New York, and you also have a multifamily GP syndicate that you're involved in, and I'm excited to jump into those sort of 3 topics. Dante, it's a pleasure to have you.
Omar, thank you so much for having me on, man. Great connecting with you. You're putting out great content, and just honored to be invited on your show here.
Amazing. I love it. I love all the books, and you've got the books and the glasses. It's sort of like your modern day Howard Marks.
Yes.
I love it. So I think a good place to get started is your Twitter following, right? You know, we can talk about brokeraging, we can talk about your multifamily GP syndicate, but I think the Twitter following makes you very unique. You've got over 50,000 followers. And I guess just how'd you get started with Twitter? And I'm curious, like, does actual business come from it, or is it just like a fun platform for you?
Yeah, Twitter has been or X, whatever we want to call it today, has been a phenomenal tool. And I got on it almost exactly 2 years ago in December of 2021. I was listening to another podcast, and I'm trying to remember the name of who I was listening to, but regardless, he was saying how Twitter has a great real estate community. And so I've had Twitter for 10, 12 years, and I never really utilized it. I never tweeted. I didn't even have the app at that time, but I still had my old account. So I hopped on and I said, started getting into it. And I was like, I'm not really comfortable sometimes saying a lot of things I want to say from the brokerage arm and the GP arm. So I was like, I'll just make an account. This was before like the guy dude stuff was anything. Those accounts. And so I just said, okay, I do multifamily. What sounds good? Multifamily Madness. And I just made that so I could be anonymous, truly, so I could say how I felt and talk about it and discuss it, and not looking to make it a big thing. It was simply so I can have my input and be able to do that and participate in the platform. Well, come a few months into it, I had tens of thousands of followers, and I was like, whoa, like we've got something here, was really what it was. And I didn't even fall into seeing like Strip Mall Guy or the Fort with Chris Powers, all those guys. Like I didn't even know they existed. I was kind of just in my own little world, just talking with people, and it 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, it just kept building up. And I knew I had something. I knew it was working because of, 1, how quick it was growing, but 2, the relationships and the people that I was meeting through this platform. I mean, you have lurkers. That's the biggest one. I have people on there. Crazy. I had one guy who he had 2 followers, no profile picture, and he messaged me. We hopped on a call. And he owned a whole portfolio of properties right in my backyard. And I'm in the process of liquidating his entire portfolio that he's had for 20 years. Another guy on there, him and his partner, have reached out to me. One lived here, one didn't. We went and got dinner like a year ago. And I ended up taking over the sale of their entire portfolio, which is like 20 properties. And even today, I was on a call with them today as we're liquidating some more assets and prepping them. But just Twitter X overall has just made so much opportunity for me, not only on the brokerage side, but also the GP side. I've signed up over 1,200 additional emails on my GP mailing list, which is huge as well. And just excited to get into all that and talk about it today. But really, just got in it, trying to participate in the community, and it just took off without me even really pushing it to.
And funny enough, I had a similar story. I was just participating in it. And then it wasn't until, I started meeting more and more people that were more and more serious as it relates to like they actually own real estate. They actually are in the business in an extremely credible way. And it wasn't until someone DM'd me. I don't think he minds me mentioning him, but it wasn't until Max Sharkansky at Tryon Properties DM'd me on Twitter. He says, I'm a sort of big fish in the West Coast, and now my investors want to be in South Florida. Do you have anything down there that I can take a look at? Within like 3 to 6 months, I think it was like 4 or 5 months actually specifically, he was under contract on a $108 million deal that we were selling. So
there you go.
As my team is like, by the way, where did this guy come from? Like, how did you get? And I'm like, oh, through Twitter. He DM'd me. And they're like, wait, you're closing a $108 million deal through a buyer that came through Twitter? Yep. That's when my whole team was like, all right, we got to get like, A, keep doing that. B, let's all sort of figure out how we can figure out Twitter.
Yeah. It's a great lead source platform, really. And, it costs $11.88 a month for me to use the premium version. And it has produced north of 6 figures of income for me easily. Probably in the future, we'll probably cross 7 figures very easily with the investment standpoint of it. So just a phenomenal platform. And if someone's listening and they're debating on getting on, just get on. Whether you have nothing to share or no profile picture, just get on there and get with people.
Yeah. How do you advise because you're anonymous and obviously I'm not. How do you advise the anonymous versus not anonymous options?
Yeah, I guess, and maybe you will one day, but I wear 2 hats essentially. I wear the brokerage hat and the GP hat, and because of that, I don't want them to kind of dip into each other as my face. And everything that I'm talking about, I want it to be representative of the business of real estate. I don't want it to say, hey, it's coming from Dante Belmonte. I want it to be, hey, it's coming from some guy that's just doing real estate. I don't know who he is. So therefore, I don't care, what his opinion kind of says from his mouth. But really, I'd like to read it of what he has to say, if that makes sense. So for someone that's going on there and says, hey, I want to be anonymous, why do you want to be anonymous? Do you want to be anonymous because you want to somehow do business and you don't want people knowing it's you for some reason? Because maybe you're very well known, a popular individual or public figure, or do you want to get on there and build your personal brand with your face and your business? So there's really no right or wrong way to do it, because there's guys like Chris Powers, for example. He commented on one of my tweets last night. He's over 100,000 followers, and his face is the face of his business and his company and his, Class B and industrial in Texas. But then you have guys like, the infamous strip mall guy, Real Estate Trent, who he doesn't show his face at all. Many people know who he is, of course, but he's really building it off of more of an anonymous base and building relationships behind closed doors. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. They all work.
Yeah, I think for me, I always tell people, listen, if you're shy to sort of put yourself out there and what people are going to think about what you say and whatnot, start anonymous, right? Like you could always pull the rabbit out of the hat and say who you are once you're a success and once you have an audience. Exactly. But if you start anonymous, you can just dish out whatever you want and nobody can link it back to you until you want them to in the later date. So it's like an easier way to get around it, because like on LinkedIn and stuff like that, I feel like because your face and your history and whatever's attached to whatever you say, people are a lot more cautious to like comment or anything. It cracks me up when I put a question on Twitter and I get hundreds of comments. I put the same question on LinkedIn and it's like a ghost town. Like nobody wants to say their opinion.
LinkedIn is a very different animal. It's extremely formal. Twitter is a very loose, fun place. Like I put up a meme of Donald Trump and something of real estate this morning. I could never do that on LinkedIn. I really couldn't. And LinkedIn, I haven't really been enjoying these last year and a half because I get spammed a lot. My inbox just gets blown up with X, Y, and Z, where, don't get me wrong, Twitter, I get some spam, but it's way more personal relationships that I'm building. And a lot of people that, are right in my own backyard as well, or people that want to be in my backyard or want to invest and whatnot. So just the Twitter platform overall, I'm so happy I got on it.
And it's fun.
Oh, blast. Love reading the comments. Love reading the banter, the jokes. It's very lighthearted, and I have to control myself because I might spend too much time on it. So I really just, there's like a half hour, an hour at night where I'll just sit on, I'll tweet, I'll draft some stuff up, I'll comment on some stuff, laugh a bunch, and then I got to have that self-control where I put it away, or else I'll just keep going. It's a never-ending roll.
That's my one thing with the Twitter and the whole social media game. It's like, it's easy to get sucked into it. And then, again, 3, 4, 5 hours into your day, you're like, or throughout the day, you're kind of like, all right, I need to balance.
Oh yeah. Like Instagram and Facebook, for example, have gotten super real intense, those 30-second videos or whatever you want to call them. And it's addicting. So I put screen time on my phone for those too, for that reason, just so I'm not spending a crazy amount of time. But Twitter, I'm willing to invest more time into it because of what it produces for my business.
No, and as I've met more people that have had success with Twitter and things like that, all of them are like, best thing that ever happened to me. Like, just start throwing your thoughts out there, and you never know. And I think you mentioned Chris Powers of the Fort podcast and Fort Capital. He said something on a podcast once that I was like, that's exactly right. He said, if you go and play golf with someone, or if you go have dinner with someone, that's 2-3 hours where, yes, you're building a very personable relationship one-on-one that may or may not, translate to anything. But that's how you build trust. On Twitter, you are scaling the ability to build trust. You can put a really, really good tweet out there that's, thought-provoking and sophisticated, whatever it may be, and it could get hundreds of thousands of views, whether you have hundreds of thousands of followers or not. And if that's the case, think about how many people are like, oh man, I really like how Dante thinks. I really like, what Dante does. And I also think that Dante's funny when he throws these little memes and things out there. So it humanizes you at scale.
Oh yeah. And I'll tell one really funny story about Twitter that my wife makes me tell a lot because she was there. A little less than 2 years ago, my wife and I went to Italy, and we did this Airbnb experience where we were on the Cinque Terre, and we were in one of the villages. And to get to this place, like to show how it was a winery on a mountaintop, and to get there, you had to take a train, take a car, walk, take another car, and like you're completely off the grid on the top of this mountain. And it's this long table, and there's about 20 people sitting there. And so my wife and I were next to each other, and these are all 20 strangers. Some were from United States, some were from France, England, just like all over the place. It's a cool experience. Right. And you're on a mountain on the water while the sun is setting. It's just something out of a movie. But so I'm sitting there, and, you're talking with each of the individual people, and the guy like across from me to the left is talking about how he has an Airbnb business, and it's a very large business. And I didn't say anything to him. I didn't introduce myself. I did nothing, because my wife looked at me and she's like, oh, he's talking about real estate. You probably love this guy. And I was just listening to him, and he was kind of sounding cocky. And he was talking about how he's going to roll up the package and sell it to Blackstone at, this crazy price. And I was just kind of like laughing, didn't say anything. And, we interacted a little bit, and I was like, oh, this guy's kind of a goon. And he probably had a little too much to drink. He was talking. So later that day, I went on Twitter and I tweeted, and I was like, I was like at this dinner, and this idiot across the table from me was talking about how he's building up this business. He's going to sell it to Blackstone. I was like, sounding like a total moron. Well, and I'm sure you can tell where this story is going. This one guy actually messaged me 2 days before that and was like, hey, I see you're in Italy, because I posted something about Italy. He's like, I'm also in Italy. We should go and get lunch. And I didn't see it. Hundreds, thousands of DMs. Yes, I did not see it. And so then 2 days after that dinner, I got a message, and the guy messaged me, and he's like, it looks like we got lunch after all. And it was that guy sitting across from the table from me was someone that followed me on Twitter. And he was like, listen, I definitely sounded like a little bit of a goon. I was over exaggerating to try to explain to these people that don't do real estate. Right. So funny enough, we had a good conversation. We're friends now. We talk.
In the middle of nowhere.
Right. Literally. And I deleted that tweet, and I made a new tweet like 2 days later. And I was like, craziest thing. I was just on this like remote mountain in Italy, and I ended up being across the table from, XYZ. And someone commented and said, wasn't this the guy you ripped apart like 2 days ago on Twitter? And I was like, oh yeah, like they put it together. So it's just kind of funny how small the Twitter world really is.
It is wild. No, it's a super small world. And it happens to me because in Miami, it's more, it's smaller. So in Miami, I'm walking around and people are like, Omar, and my girlfriend just rolls her eyes like, I can't believe you're like some Twitter micro celebrity. And I'm like, it's with a bunch of dudes that do real estate. But yeah, it's cool. And I guess I'm curious, on Twitter, do you get more actual sort of deal flow and business, you think, from a brokeraging perspective or a GP perspective?
So I haven't actually done a capital raise through the Twitter database that I've built yet, mainly because of the market, current state of the market. We haven't really done any deals that required us to raise additional capital. It was all in-house, or my personal portfolio, that is. So I haven't really exercised the capital raising side of it. I'm very excited and curious to do that once we get a new opportunity in the syndicate business, which we'll talk about. But on the brokerage side, to answer your question, there's been a lot of deal flow. A lot of buyers I've worked with and a lot of sellers in my market that I didn't know existed and was able to connect with through Twitter. I mean, a pair of two gentlemen that I've really enjoyed working with that have over 20 properties that I've been working on with them. And we've got some stuff in the works that I'm going to do with them. That other individual I talked about who was just kind of a lurker, no profile picture, nothing, 2 followers, or only followed 2 people. It was me and Elon Musk. And, he had a portfolio he's built for 20 years, and I liquidated part of that for him and going to do more. And there's other guys like this one gentleman, again, super, super lurker. And he does new development student housing in my market. And he has these beautiful buildings. I've always wondered who has owned them. And I met up with him, and so hopefully we'll do some stuff in the future. He's just at a certain point in his portfolio where he's not, buying or selling at the moment. He's developing what he already owns.
Yeah, the lurkers are sneakily where the money's at, right? Because it's these guys that could be CEOs or fund managers, and they're not, they don't want to have the time or spend the time to be tweeting, but they're out there sort of like reading about it and gaining knowledge. And when they reach out, don't dismiss them. It's what I've learned. They've got 7 followers and they have a $7 billion fund or something.
Exactly.
It's wild. So within brokeraging, right, you had a amazing year in 2023 when I think most people had, a very tough year in brokeraging. I think I read that you sold over 120 individual properties in 2023, which is insane. What do you think makes you uniquely a good broker?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate the highlight on that. At the end of 2022, when interest rates started getting a little crazy, I predicted that my business would decrease by about 30 to 35%. In reality, it almost doubled, believe it or not. And which is truly amazing. It's truly a blessing. And I don't heed all of his advice, but something that Grant Cardone says is during the recession or during downturns, when people are pulling back, pulling out marketing dollars or slowing down a little bit and retreating, that's when you need to push forward and take up that market share. And that's really exactly what I did in 2023. When people were kind of sitting on the sidelines or not doing as much on the brokerage side and not investing in their business, advertising, marketing, meeting with buyers, sellers, that's really where I doubled down and I said, hey, let's go balls to the wall on this and let's spend more marketing dollars. Let's get in front of more sellers, more buyers. How can we do this? And there's really a few routes of the business that I take that really makes me stand out and help me sell 130 individual properties in 2023. The next closest broker in my market was under 80 properties. So it was a big gap. And I say that proudly because I worked very hard and very tirelessly last year to make that achievement happen. A few things. I've got a podcast show that I've been running for 4 years now. It's at like 130 episodes, I think. And I have people that, call me, email me, text me. Hey, I listened to your podcast. I love what you had to say. I've listened to 40 of your episodes. Would love to get together. So that one, which podcasting and nothing against you or the guys that are doing podcasting today, but it has become a very saturated space, just like a lot of things in real estate. But you have to do it right, like you're doing it, to stand out.
A lot of people I tell, especially like the younger people, right? Like I think ourselves included, I'm like, now is sort of such an interesting time to get creative and do things that the older, the old guards aren't doing, right? So like a lot of my team knows this, right? A lot of our business comes from the senior partners in my team. I'm just the one that like blasts it out in a loudspeaker for the world to know what we're doing. And it's obviously helping the team grow. It's helping my senior partners grow, but myself as well. And I tell everyone that's young, it's like with AI, with all these things that are happening, you should be ecstatic to like learn how to implement it in the business, because it's going to supercharge you and your abilities and your marketability to advance in the business.
Yep. And the podcasting is a way to stay in front of people 24/7 without exerting any additional energy or time. Someone can be listening to my podcast at 2 a.m. while I'm sleeping, and I'm still having an impact on them and what they're doing, which is huge. And wherever they're going, driving in the car, on a plane ride, whatever, they're listening to the podcast, which is good. My podcast show isn't huge, isn't highly successful by any means. It doesn't have hundreds of thousands of plays. Maybe it has 100,000 total. I don't know. I don't even keep track of that. I definitely get a few hundred listens an episode, but it's impactful listens that are happening. It's not the person that's turning on Bigger Pockets that's never invested in real estate and just kind of listening because it's a top show. That's one thing I'm doing. Another thing is I host in-person events, which is huge. Early on, I hosted monthly meetups in my market, and I was the only one really doing it. And the monthly meetups started to get very tiring. It was very time intensive, every month meeting, every month advertising, reaching out to people, trying to get people there. And it was good. 20 to 30 people would show up each month, and these would be clients. And it wasn't just brokerage side, but it was also syndication side, which I'll get to in a minute. But now I'm doing more of 2 to 3 events a year, but they're more sizable events. 100 plus people show up that are investors. I'm doing food, drinks, giveaways, having property managers, attorneys, lenders come in and talk to these people as well. And I'm adding value. And, it's not me selling anything. It's me kind of giving back and letting these individuals network. And I've had guys fly in from other parts of the country to participate. I've had a lot of guys from New York City come up and up in upstate New York. And I host it at my office, and I do it from it starts at 7 p.m. And the last one went till 11:30 p.m. And it was we were just hanging out in the office, just, talking shop and having a great time and having some drinks and having some snacks while we were doing it, which is awesome. And the nice thing about the brokerage business is it goes hand in hand with the syndicate business. I have clients who will buy an investment property from me, give me $100,000 in my syndicate business, buy another property, throw another $100,000 my way or something like that. So they're diversifying their portfolio at the same time. They own some property individually that are smaller, all themselves, and then they have a piece of a puzzle of a bigger property in a different market. So they're diversifying in that way. And that's what lets me connect both businesses really well. And I've seen the fruits of that very much so.
No, that's incredible. So then how do you, I guess let's shift over to the syndicate business for a bit, because I'm curious. Mm-hmm. How did you get started with the syndicate business? How long were you brokeraging for when you decided, here's where I want to buy deals and these type of deals, et cetera?
Yeah. So I just turned 26 years old. I've been brokeraging real estate for 7 years now. So instead of going to school, I got my license right out of high school, essentially, and just started going right at it. And I was buying property at the same time, some duplexes, some single families, some smaller properties. And
in your own market that you were brokeraging?
Correct. Yep. And one, it started to be almost like a conflict of interest. But two, the bigger piece of the puzzle was I was like, this is going to take forever to build up a sizable portfolio that I want to build up, buying all these individual smaller, older properties. Because those 130 deals I did last year, those are ranging anywhere from, single family, 2-family rentals, all the way up to 50, 60 unit apartment complexes. I'm not doing $100 million deals like you and your team are doing. This market just doesn't have that. I don't think anything's ever sold for $100 million in the market I'm in. The zoning's different. It's an older market. The construction's a little bit older. 1980s around here is considered new construction, which is crazy, but it's just, it is when it comes to investment property. So I started just thinking it's going to be really hard to build a portfolio of these properties. I was buying 2, 3 single families that were built in 1900, 1905. And, with older properties come, issues. So I really said, And I didn't believe in the syndication model at all. I knew of it. I studied it. I was like, it's really not for me. But I took a closer look at it, and there's an individual that is actually good friends with my father, and he went to our church, and he moved to North Carolina for his wife's work, and he was an engineer. And every time we saw each other, we always were just talking about real estate. And one day I was like, I talked to my wife about it. I was like, I really need a good partner that I can do this with, because I can't really do it all myself. So I called him up one day and said, hey, would you want to do this together? And he didn't even think about it. He's like, yes, like, let's do it. And we decided to syndicate apartment buildings, and we did research. We looked at like 20 different markets, and we said, what markets do we want to be in? And one of the most hot markets, in my opinion, in his opinion, and looking at the data, was Charlotte. And he so happened to live right in Charlotte. And so it kind of confirmed, like, you're going to be our boots on the guy. You're going to be our construction management guy. You're going to, head up asset management. You're going to go see the properties every week. Let's do it there. And we started in 2020, I want to say. So it's almost been 4 years. Yeah, it was 2020. And we haven't bought a crazy amount of properties. We have bought really good deals that have done really well for us. I mean, our first deal we ever bought is producing a double-digit cash on cash return annually to investors. It is doing phenomenal. And those are the type of deals we do. We do the deals where we bought a deal that appraised for 20% more than we purchased it for. We bought another deal that we had people calling us saying, well, we'll give you 15% more than you bought it for the day you close. Like, those are the type of deals we do. We're not, I have underwritten hundreds of deals and done a handful of deals. And that's just how we operate. And I'm, happy to talk more about that. I know that's not the basis of, what we're talking about here, but, very, very strong leverage, very strong acquisition criteria that we have. We're in a very strong class, not A class, not C class, but in that, middle of the road, where it's always going to have a client or a tenant base in this matter. And, I specialize in the broker relations. Obviously, that's where I'm very trained, and that's what I do every day. And I can relate to these guys. I also do investor relations, capital raising. I dip my feet in the asset management with my partner from a distance, and I do all the acquisitions and dispositions. My partner, he's primarily, he was an engineer. He is no longer an engineer. He's in this full time, and he specializes in not property management, but project management. And other syndication groups that have been struggling in North Carolina have actually hired him as a third-party consultant to come in and kind of push them out of the water. And the stories he tells me of how these GPs are functioning blow my mind, how they're even able to operate to any degree. Like, we had a 30-minute call yesterday, and he was just telling me the stories of these people he's trying to get out from underwater. And I'm like, I like froze almost, because I was like, we are, and I don't say this to brag, but we are functioning and operating on such a higher level than all these other operators. It's actually laughable. And we haven't shut off any distributions. We've never done a capital call. We've never had a negative month. We have done phenomenal with their portfolio. It's strong. It's small, but it's mighty.
Yeah, for us, I think both of us, sell properties for a lot of GPs, and in selling properties, you sort of get an understanding of the level of diligence that each GP does. And to your point, there's some properties that we've sold that I'm like, nobody toured it, nobody went to go see it, and I'm just like, but here's a top offer with $2 million hard, and I'm just like, this is wild. And like, the more you get to know them, the more you sort of see that the infrastructure is like duct taped together, but they're doing it.
And our job is to sell the property. It's not, we advise, but we can't make investment decisions on the behalf of every single one of these individuals. I give my 2 cents. Like, are you sure you don't want to do this? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Is what I'm saying. Yes, yes, yes is, what they say. I'm sure. And I've got guys who, especially from New York City, who have bought dozens of properties, never seeing them, never doing any inspections. Number looked good on paper, so they're doing the deal. Are you sure you don't want to come up and tour it with me? I'm happy to walk you through it. No, I don't have time. I'm good. I'll just buy it. Okay, I did my job. You're doing what you think is yours.
Yeah. Exactly. And on the flip side of that, you'll talk to guys that are like a lean, mean machine, and they're there the next day
Oh
after
yeah.
seeing
Yep.
the opportunity. They're touring the asset. They're asking all the right questions. They're asking you the
Hmm.
questions that you're like, huh, I never even thought about that. Which I think is what's
Exactly.
interesting, right? I feel like actually let's talk about this because I feel like that's really interesting. I feel most people, and maybe you could agree, most people are like gunning for the real estate private equity role, right? They're
Yep.
in college and like the GP principal, like I want to be John Gray, Sam Zell, so I want to go work as a GP. And I sometimes tell folks like go for it, but don't discard starting as a broker
Hmm.
within a team that does a lot of business because you'll be able to meet and learn from hundreds of GPs that you end up working with. Versus
Yep.
if you go work for ABC Shop that has this buy box, that's the only thing you're going to learn as you
Exactly.
get started. And for me, in meeting people that do hundreds of different strategies and asking hundreds of different questions, I feel like I'm learning a ton from all these GPs of like
Yep.
how to do it, how not to do it. What's your typical advice when people reach out to you and say, should I be a GP? Should I be a broker? How do you think about that decision for younger people getting into the business?
Yeah, great question. I get this question a lot. I had a Clemson student going through a real estate program call me and interview me, and he's like, "I want to get, I want to get started. What should I buy?" And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" I said, "The first thing you're going to buy is nothing." I said because there's never been a time with more opportunity, but there's also never been a time where you could screw up the rest of your career by buying one bad deal to start with, and that's just the truth. When inexperienced people come to me and say, "Hey, how should I buy a deal or how can I buy a deal?" I tell them you shouldn't even be thinking about buying a deal right now. You should think about being a sponge, absorbing every piece of information you can possibly get. I like to think, I'm young. I'm 26, just turned 26. I still like to think I'm experienced. I've seen thousands of deals go through. I've done a large amount of deals myself, and I'm still not buying that much right now. I tell those younger guys, go sign up for a shop that's salary based plus commission, has a base, and you can look at everything. You get under the hood, you see the numbers, you see how they're doing everything with no risk to yourself. The only risk is that you're going to lose your job one day because maybe they go out of business. But go somewhere where you can learn, you can earn an income, and your risk is very low. If you've got a great deal, sure, find a way to take it down. But how do you know it's truly a great deal if you have no experience and you've never done this?
Right.
So to those younger guys, go work for a brokerage shop that is doing what you're doing, what I'm doing, and really understand and learn the business. Or maybe you do go work for a PE firm and you're just going to be one of those guys that you're doing a lot of work, but you're also learning a lot because of that work. And just take that risk proportion off the table. Because like I said, these guys can do one deal right now that can ruin the rest of their career. That can, if they saved up a good amount of capital, they did a deal and it goes away, that, cushion that you had to start with is gone. And you're starting from ground zero again.
Right. And I guess if they decide to go the PE route, they don't want to be a broker for whatever reason, do you typically advise, go to a smaller, more nimble shop, try to go for Blackstone and these much bigger shops? Do you have any opinions there?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. So I don't operate in that large institutional space. I don't know much about it, and I don't really want to know much about it. A lot of people want to get into those big juicy deals, those big PE companies. That's all the glitz, the glamour. Oh, I work for XYZ, name dropping. That's just not me. I work for a local brokerage in my state that does very well. We're the number one brokerage in my market, but it's super local. It's, the CEO comes to our office all the time, talks with us. And I have no want to build up this big PE or GP or syndicate company that has thousands of investors and all this reporting and all that. I'd like to build up my personal portfolio. So I would tell those guys, get in a little bit smaller shop and really be green and learn from these smaller guys. Because you go to these bigger companies, you're just a name on a payroll list, a lot of times. They'll get rid of you just like they got you, very quick and very easy sometimes. So it depends on what you're shooting for. If you're in Miami, New York City, LA, and you're trying to hit it big, then I get it. You're probably going to want to go for one of those bigger companies. But if you don't have these large, audacious goals like myself, and you just want to learn steady, build a good base, build a strong recession resistant portfolio, low leverage, things like that, then do something like I'm doing. Work for a local brokerage. Take down some modest deals. Don't try to shoot for the moon, and just build steadily.
Yeah, and my big takeaway too from operating in the business and being, a player in the real estate game is that the larger the shop, typically the more focused your tasks are, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a big machine and they need very efficient cogs, if you will.
Yep.
And two things. One, you mentioned it, you're subject to more impersonal layoffs. Hey, got to cut 15% of the workforce.
Wait, we're seeing it these last 2 years.
Exactly right. And then two, what you learned, now your skills are only transferable to sort of another big machine that wants that cog, because that's the thing that you really focus and refine on, right? Versus if you go work, let's say at a 5, 10, 15 person real estate private equity shop, then you can learn so much, wider as it relates to asset management, maybe leasing, investor relations, just throughout the real estate spectrum. And I'm sure, you mentioned it, right? You're still learning the business. There is so much to the real estate game that I'd encourage everyone to try to learn from as many people as possible, in the most sort of versatile role possible. And it's the reason why I bet you learn a lot from these attorneys and land use attorneys, whatever, accountants, investor relation guys. The reason why I'm friends with all of them in Miami is just they have an entirely different sort of worldview within the game that we play. I'll never forget, I went to a ULI meeting and there was a guy that was working at Kimley Horn, and his whole world was traffic engineer, traffic surveys and stuff like that for developments. And I spent hours talking to this dude at this meeting because I'm like, dude, I never even knew this existed. And he was working on some deals that we were selling, and I didn't even know his role existed. But I learned so much from this person that I just encourage everyone to, even if you're at a shop today where you feel like your task is very refined and oriented, go and meet other people, ask for different responsibilities, because the real estate game is that it's very versatile.
It is, yeah. And as soon as you think you know it all is when you know nothing, is truly what it is, because you're constantly learning. Like you said, I didn't even know your role existed. You met someone totally new that you learned from, and I think that's extremely important.
100%. So for you, I guess as you think about 2024 or 5 years from now, how do you sort of allocate your time between brokeraging and syndicating? I guess today, and then how do you see that being allocated in the future?
Yeah, a great question. And I get this question a lot. How do I, allocate the time between the two? Because it's essentially two different hats. The brokerage business certainly takes up more amount of time for me. Sourcing deals, meeting with buyers, sellers, tours, everything. It takes up a lot of time. And some weeks I have extremely busy weeks where I'm working 60 plus hours. Other weeks I maybe tone it back to 30. The GP business is definitely more, keeps me much more busy when we're on the acquisition front, due diligence front, capital raising front. That is a lot more legwork. So being that we had a deal under contract 2 months ago and we ended up dropping it because the property was completely misrepresented. But that is where a lot of my time gets allocated, because I'm underwriting these deals. I'm taking the time to go fly down, walk these properties, underwriting, doing rent comps, working with property managers, then negotiating PSA, doing all the capital raising docs, working with our attorneys to get those all drafted up, actually, putting together the marketing packet, the pitch presentation, taking investor calls, setting up entities, bank accounts, all that stuff. It all piles on. So whenever we have new acquisitions that we're going after, there's a lot of time that is put into that. And I'll definitely pull back on the brokerage side a little bit, or maybe pull some later nights to make both happen. But right now, and for the last several years, our syndication business has kept me at bay, I guess, with time, because my partner and I, just one partner, that we do our asset management meetings. We meet every Monday morning at 9 a.m. We go through all the financials, all the properties, all the KPIs, any outstanding tasks, any liabilities. And we go through all that. It takes us, depending on how much we got going on, an hour to 2 hours. And then we have property management calls We used to have them every week, but now that everything is stabilized and it's in that boring stage where we're just cash flowing, it's maybe every other week. And sometimes those calls with the PMs are, hey, how are you doing? How are your kids doing? Okay. Anything going on at the property? 100% collected, no delinquencies, no evictions. Perfect. Talk to you in 2 weeks. And, we have access to all the financials too. So it makes it easier. So right now, again, to answer your question, syndicate business, it's I don't want to say on autopilot because we're still doing work, but it's slowed down for sure. It's just maintaining. We are exiting some of our assets right now. So we're just getting stuff over to the brokers, getting ready to go to market. One of the deals we're negotiating a PSA on. So that's an hour call with our attorney, just going over and drafting that. And then really the brokerage business, I cold call a lot. I send out mailers. I tour properties and meet with buyers and sellers a lot. I'm not immune to going out and hunting down leads. No one is. So I am physically the one going through making cold calls every single day. Not every day, because sometimes I have lots of appointments. But when I have downtime or I have blocks that I block out for cold calling, I'm making X amount of cold calls a day to get leads and to get new acquisitions or get new sellers. So it just really depends on where we are in each business of how much time is getting allocated to each. But I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job in that.
Where are you finding a lot of your leads? Is there a program you typically use?
Yeah, so I have through my local brokerage tools, through like the MLS, there's a tool called Realist, which I use to pull list of owners for apartment buildings. And then I take that list and I will put it into Reonomy to pull the actual owner info. So it does tell me the owner's name, address, phone number, email, all that. And then if it's entity, it breaks down who the mortgage signers are and their contact info and whatnot. Reonomy is a great tool. It's a little expensive, and they kind of lock you in a 1-year contract, all paid up front. But it's been the best tool to find out everything that I need, and that's what I'm utilizing to get that lead info, get that seller info.
What do you feel like is the most effective as it relates to cold calls, mailers, and the different type of touch points you do?
Yeah, so I would say the number one is word of mouth. I get people that just call me and say, hey, XYZ gave me your number, or hey, I saw you sold XYZ buildings. I saw you sold this building. And that has definitely been a large sum of getting business. But I think the cold calling is going to be the next one. That one produced, cold calling wise, I'd have to look, but I want to say it produced at least 13 or 14 deals for me last year. Mailers probably around like 3 or 4. And I just sent out another mailing campaign to every single apartment building in my market. And we'll see what that drums up as far as business goes. But, I did a mailing campaign 3 years ago, and I got a call from a seller 3 months ago. Hey, I still got your postcard. I want to sell. Can you meet me at the property? And it's under contract right now. So it all works. It all comes full circle, but it takes time and money to invest in these things.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've started to learn a lot more recently over the last 3 years of how, we ourselves personally are a business, and you need to reinvest into yourself, into your business. It's not just, let me go invest this in an index fund in the stock market to make, 8% or whatever it is. It's like, how confident are you in the way that you can grow and your ROI into the money that you spend for yourself?
Exactly. You got to invest in the business. And I think I don't have the exact math, but like I did a mailing campaign that cost like $5,000, and it's produced 10x of what it cost in commissions. But like another one is I found an apartment building that was for sale by owner on Zillow, believe it or not. And I called up the lady. I was like, hey, so you got this building for sale. Sure, you got some interest. I said, can I meet you over there? I want to take some pictures of the place, because she had like 4 pictures. Want to meet you. Want to take pictures of the place. Let me share the pictures with some of my buyers. If I bring you a buyer, will you pay me a commission? Kind of hemming and hawed. I met her in person. We really hit it off. She really liked me. And I ended up selling that building for her off market, and I got a commission on it. That buyer bought it, improved it, ended up selling it for almost 2 times as much as he bought it for with me. I sold it for him. I represented the buyer and the seller, so I got double commission on that. That buyer found me because of that listing, and that buyer bought another building from me that I got off of a mailer on the next street over. So one building, produced a cold call, essentially produced a buyer, a seller, a buyer, and another buyer again, introduced me to a new buyer. I did a mailing campaign that a lady called me, said, hey, I inherited this apartment building. I got your postcard, I'd like to sell it. I took that lady, I took the buyer I got from the next street over, put them together on another deal. That buyer that I got from 2 deals ago referred me to a family member that also wanted to buy a building, and I sold them a building as well. And so it's just like these activities, they add up. That one phone call I made for that cold call equaled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deals.
It's incredible.
Like that's the
Good
stuff
ROI.
I'm talking about. Yeah. Huge. It took me literally 2 minutes to go on Zillow, look up this lady's number, and make the call and go meet her and see what it produced.
Bob Knackles, actually, which I'm sure you've come across, is the one that opened my eyes to reinvesting back in yourself. I had a conversation with him when I met him. He says he puts hundreds of thousands of dollars into like marketing himself a year. And I'm like, that is I'm like, whoa, like that's, and he's like, yeah, like just think about it. I get ROI from it. Why would I not?
Exactly. And he's on a totally different level from what I'm doing. I mean, the buildings he's selling, the developments that he's selling and whatnot, the commercial property, the market. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. He's been doing a phenomenal job since before I was born, which I think is great. And, good for him. And he's doing a great example of what needs to happen. Like you said, Omar, with that reinvestment. And I think a lot of brokers, agents, anyone struggle with that reinvestment aspect because I worked so hard to get that $10,000 commission. Why would I want to give up half of it? I'm already going to give up more than a quarter of it for taxes. I'm left with nothing. Well, I promise you, if you do it properly and you reinvest it, those dollars will bring you more dollars. And it's true. And I've seen that in my business in tenfold.
I'm a frugal guy by nature. And I feel like that's the muscle that I've most been working to flex, which is just like, I'm almost just like throwing money at opportunities in marketing and seeing what comes of it to just like get myself, maybe I'll go back and start being a little more judicious with my money. But as it relates to marketing my team and the Omar brand, I'm like throwing all the money, I have at it, and then I'll refine it. But because I was a frugal person, and I think, the transition for a lot of brokers is like, you make $0, your bank account is just hemorrhaging, month over month until you get that hit. So when you get that closing, you want to like hold that closing as tight as possible, right? Like all that money. And, once you sort of see through it to the other side and you're like, oh, wow, I've got a pipeline, I've got business, I've got all these things, you can start playing more with the money. And it's, again, being frugal by nature. Now I need a camera, boom, camera. I need a microphone. I need mailers. And let's just see what comes of it.
Yeah, it's totally true. And not all marketing is going to work. You're going to find out over time what does and doesn't work, and the stuff that does work, and you're going to reinvest in the stuff that doesn't work. You're obviously not going to, maybe you'll try once more, but if it doesn't, you won't do it again. And I want to kind of go off on totally out of left field here, Omar. I want to talk about taxes for a second, because self-employed brokers, agents, all that, they do pay taxes. They just pay it at the end of the year in a giant lump sum that hurts like hell. Something that I do that, again, both hats kind of work together is I make a bunch in commissions off of my brokerage business. I have an S Corp that I pay myself a yearly wage to that lessens that tax burden. But I also qualify as a qualified real estate professional, or a QREP. And because I have that qualification through taxes, I also get to use the depreciation and the cost segregations from my syndication business, from the K1s and my personal properties I own. And I get to use those paper losses against my commission income. So like this year, I just got done with my CPA. Really, obviously we don't have everything from 2023, but we have estimates. And he's like, dude, you're going to pay like nothing in taxes. He's like, you made a great buck this year. You had a great December to finish it out. He's like, but last year you actually paid a little bit more, so that's going to get credited towards this year, and you owe like a few grand, like 4 digits, not even 5 digits of taxes, and that's because of the things you're doing together. And I'm not a CPA and accountant, talk to those guys for you, but to really put it in simple terms, I make X amount of dollar of commission dollars. Yep. So let's say 500,000, or let's just 2022, 2023, whatever, 500 grand. I expense things. So let's say I have 50 grand of expenses that nets me 450,000. I give a lot to my church and some other programs. So let's say I give another 100 or 50,000, which brings me from 500 to 400,000. Well, I have all this property that I'm depreciating and doing cost segregation studies on, using bonus
From
depreciation, all that fun stuff. From my personal portfolio and the GP side. And I get K1s from the GP side, and then on my personal return from the properties I own. And I'm going to use those paper losses from that depreciation against my commission income because I'm a qualified real estate professional. Usually passive only works with passive, but for me, it works with earned because of where the earned income is coming from. And let's say I have $380,000 of, or easy math, let's say $350,000 of paper losses and depreciation on those assets. I'm taking 400 grand of income. I'm subtracting $350,000 of losses. That shows my income at 50,000 essentially. So I'm only paying taxes on 50,000. Keep in mind, you sell those properties, you're going to have to pay those taxes back, but it's the velocity of money. It frees me up a lot more capital that I can use for deals to invest now to make money than getting that money 5-10 years down the line when I sell these assets. So I guess the curse that I'm in is I need to buy more and more property each year to keep up with that depreciation. And it's true. And my attorney and I spoke about it. He's like, hey, you bought one apartment building yourself this year. It may have been not as big as the ones you're syndicating, but because you have 100% ownership, the depreciation amount is the same as those buildings you syndicated. He's like, so my advice, go buy 2 of those next year if you can find them, because bonus depreciation is also phasing out. So it was 80% last year. It's 60% this year. So technically I need to make up that 60 to 80% delta by buying more property. So again, it's the curse of I got to keep buying stuff, but it's also the blessing that I get to keep buying stuff. I get to keep building wealth. I get to keep building the portfolio, cash flow, tax benefits, and everything that comes with it.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, just think about this. You were going to go spend taxes on $350,000 of income, right? So you were going to go and spend 100 grand in taxes. Instead, you're going to pay taxes on 50,000 and you invested in a property. Such a win-win.
Exactly. It's huge. Yeah, it's almost not fair, but it is the tax code, and it is fair because we're utilizing what's allowed and we're putting in the work, the time, and the effort to do these things. So I just can't comprehend other businesses being able to pair up like these.
100%. That's the phase I'm sort of doing now. Obviously, 2021 was a record year for a lot of people, and it was the year that I paid over $100,000 in taxes. And I was kind of happy about it. I'm like, that means I obviously made a lot of money, but I was like, now let me get taxes under control.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's just the nature of the business, but we keep moving and we keep doing it.
Exactly. So we'll start sort of wrapping up. I think the last sort of few questions I have for you is, I guess, how did you do your first deal? If you want to get into your first GP deal or your largest GP deal, whichever one you think is more interesting of a story. And then sort of how do you see 2024 playing out as it relates to brokeraging or GP and where you think more opportunities are going to be going forward?
Yeah, so I will trying to think, which one do I want to talk about? There was we did a 27-day close on a syndication with a loan. That one was pretty spectacular. I guess we'll talk about that one. So a few deals down the line, we did a deal where a large brokerage shop, Cushman & Wakefield, actually brought us a deal off market. It was we'll say it's a 50-unit apartment complex. And we did other deals in the market. We were known by the brokers in this market, said, hey, we got this great off-market opportunity. Here's the numbers. Here's the pricing guidance. And so, we looked at it and I said, okay, I like the deal. I sent my partner to go see it because he's always first stab at it because he's right there. I sent him out to go see it with the broker. So yeah, everything checks out. It looks like a good property, good neighborhood. It seemed like it was in good shape. And so we went to get our, line up a lender before we officially signed a PSA. And the lender, this was early 2022 when interest rates started to adjust, and we had a loan with them previously. We closed 2 months before, and it was essentially a 5-year fixed bridge. And they were like, listen, you need to close this loan within 30 days. If you don't close it in 30 days, your interest rate we quoted you is going to go up, and it's not going to be fixed. It's going to be adjustable. So we were like literally, I was like, let's do it. Like, this is too good of a deal to pass up. So literally we went to I hopped on a plane. We went to the property to do diligence, and we went to Starbucks with the seller and hashed out the PSA at a Starbucks. It was a husband and wife couple. They owned it for 10 years. And we literally went to a Starbucks, hashed out the contract, went over to the property and did due diligence, all in one trip. And once we got done with that, we expedited survey, we expedited appraisal. We raised all the capital in less than 5 days for the deal. And we closed the deal in 27 days with a loan on it. And that was Cushman & Wakefield, that team's in that region, their fastest close they've ever had on a deal. And we have increased the NOI in that property by north of 35%. It's cash flowing very well. We're in a very good position on it. And we've added so much value to it. I think we're debating on selling the deal just because we want to reinvest that capital. And it's just time. It's kind of cycle for these deals. So that was just kind of one of a really good story, I guess, to speak to our team and how quickly and how well we operate on opportunities.
No, it's incredible. And I think something that I've noticed, whether you're doing $2 million deals, $15 million deals, or $130 million deals, is the GPs that just know their market, know what they're looking for. When they find that opportunity, they can move so quickly just because they know what a good deal looks like, right? And I guess for 2024 or 2025, call it the next 12, 24 months, I don't know if you want to do predictions. Do you think you're going to be busier on the brokerage side? Do you think you're going to be busier on the GP side?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the batteries in my crystal ball are dead. But I see that a lot of bridge debt is going to start coming due. I've already got the phone calls from brokers. Hey, just being upfront, these guys have to sell. Their bridge is coming due. They can't refi. That is starting to come to light a little bit more. I think 2023 was extremely better than what was predicted in every avenue, personally. I think 2024, that interest rates are going to fall around a 6% plus or minus. I think somewhere in the fives is a very healthy interest rate for where we need to be with everything. So I think you're going to see, because of this last year and a half of deal flow being so low, you're going to see a lot of smaller syndicate buyers that kind of go by the wayside and aren't doing deals anymore. But I also see sometimes capital raising might be a little bit more difficult because some investors are going to be a little bit more skittish. The big guys that have the big PE checks, family offices behind them, they're probably going to be fine. They're sitting on bags of cash they really want to deploy, and they're waiting for the right opportunities. But I still think there's going to be bidding wars. I still think there's going to be there's more capital, dry powder on the sidelines that want to get in than are able to find deals. So that is naturally going to inflate a lot of deals and their where they're at. I mean, a deal we had under contract 2 months ago that we pulled out for, they brought it back to market, and they ended up signing a contract for almost 10% higher than what we ended up under contract for, which makes no sense financially for that buyer. I wish them the best, but if we didn't want to do the deal at that number and when we were pushing it through, how are they possibly going to do the deal at 10% more than we were taking it down for? So you'll see crappier buyers fall to the wayside. You'll see some more sophisticated buyers stay around, those that can get access to capital. I think we'll even struggle raising capital, not because we've done anything wrong, but because of the horror stories and the other deals. Like, I have one guy who came from a mailer, believe it or not, had an apartment building this is cool. So he had an apartment building in my market, got my mailer, didn't want to sell anything, but he still wanted to meet up. He's invested in 8 syndications. He invested in a syndication with us from a brokerage mailer. I did sell a property for him 3 months ago, but that was 2 years ago I met him. And he said that he's in 7 deals. Several of them aren't paying. One's in trouble. And 2 or 3 of them are only cash flowing. And he said our deal is the best by far.
Amazing.
And we're not, those investors that he's invested with are if I said their names, your jaw would drop, because they're very, very large investors. They're very large GP groups. And he's like, you guys have the best reporting. And I pride myself on never once have I ever had an investor call, text, or email asking how the investment's going, because our reporting is so top notch. We send everything to them. They have a portal so they can view everything, but they also get monthly updates, quarterly video updates, and annual calls with the GPs. And because of that, they do not bother us. When I first got into the business, I truly thought that I don't know if I want investors because I don't want to be getting calls saying, "Hey, how's my investment doing? How's that doing?" And I'm so pleased to say we haven't had that. So I think if we go to raise for another deal, it might be a little bit slower than on past deals just because of the state of the market. Right. And guys like I was talking about, who he's in 7 deals and a lot of them are going south. He's probably a little less excited to invest in these, but probably not as hesitant to invest with us than other groups. And there's other great groups out there. Don't think I'm talking smack about all of them. But so it'll be interesting to see. I really don't know how it's going to play out because, again, I thought 2023 was going to be a detrimental year. And it was a phenomenal year from what we experienced.
Yeah, honestly, in talking to you, it's really opened my eyes to how amazing being like a brokerage in one market and the GP in the other is, especially because you don't have to do deals, right? Like in the brokeraging business, it's a cash flowing, cash first, cash heavy business. So you're good as it relates to like your means and your lifestyle. And then opportunistically, you're finding really, really good deals that you want to invest in, right? As it relates to if you're just a broker, you need people to sell. And if you're just a GP, you need deals.
You need deal, right. Deals.
And
yep, exactly.
It's a really like interesting and sort of authentic playbook because you're telling people like, hey, I'm good making money here, but this is a great deal that we should capitalize on.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's GPs that need to do deals, need to get fees to keep the lights on. I haven't got an acquisition fee in almost 2 years, and I promise you, I'm doing just fine, and I tell my wife too, it's the brokerage business is what keeps us running, pays expenses, puts money away in savings. We're extremely and above beyond comfortable, and anything that the syndication business does is just cherry on top. When those deals mature, when those deals sell, and I get my split of the GP piece, and I get my, we invest as LPs in our own deals, and I get that big payday. It's like, that's just going to be icing on the on top, baby. Like, that's going to be a bonus that wasn't prepared, but it's there. And it's a great business model, not one that I ever plan on being in. It kind of just, it happened as it happened. I never sat down and wrote it out and said, I'm going to do this many deals and I'm going to GP these deals and they're going to go together like this tax wise. Like the pieces just kind of fell together, and I just picked up through education, through reading these books, through talking to other investors, and it's made a very comfortable cushion for us. And people always ask, what's your goal? How many units do you want to own? How much money do you want to make? And I'm like, I'm not that guy. Like, I don't have this crazy goal. I want to be comfortable. We have fun, got a great family, got a daughter, wonderful wife, and we've got a good family, and we're very comfortable. And it's not every day, we're not worried. And I don't want to get to this point where we need to have 3 houses, a yacht, and a private jet. Like that sounds terrible, honestly. Yeah.
No, it's so funny you say that. In talking and interviewing the real estate god, very similar sort of playbook where they're like, I just want to do good deals, and I want to work hard. I like working. I like what I do, and I don't want this huge operation that I have to then take care of and manage and keep growing and keep building just to keep the lights on. And no, I think it's interesting to meet people like you that are ambitious, but still sort of down to earth and just like to do what they do and aren't looking for, I'm going to do this till X time and then pivot and retire and be in the Maldives. It's like, no, you've created a lifestyle that you enjoy. So you're sort of already living the life that you want to live.
Exactly. I'll always keep the brokerage license, even if I'm not selling 100+ deals a year, just because it's good to have. But, I'd love to get, 2 or 3 employees that are just exclusively work for me. My brokerage business, I have no employees. I have no accountant, no bookkeepers, no admin workers or anything like that. I do all the contracts, I do all the paperwork, I do all the tours, everything I do myself. But I'd love in the future to have, 2 or 3 employees that exclusively work for me. Once I own enough property where I can just have an employee that does all the management, employee that does all the maintenance, just things like that to have accountability for those individuals, not hire everything out.
Dante, I feel like you and I can chat forever here. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Do you have any parting words for the platform?
Get on Twitter, baby. Get on Twitter.
Follow me.
Everyone's got to get on Twitter. Yeah, right. No, just enjoy it. And I'd say the biggest thing, and a lot of people struggle with this, and I sometimes struggle with it, but a lot less now. Don't compare yourself to other people that are doing more deals, bigger deals, lots of deals, more expensive deals. Don't compare, because everyone's got a different walk. I know a bunch of people that are doing way bigger deals than I am, many more deals than I am, but that's not like happiness. That's not something that's going to kind of keep you moving. You'll never get satisfied with enough, is really what that equates to. Of course, I always want to do more. I want to do bigger deals. I want to do better deals, but just don't compare yourself. Everyone's at different stages. So just keep doing what you're doing. Just compare yourself to the person you were last year. Try to beat yourself last year. Try to beat yourself and keep getting better.
Yeah, 1% better every day. I love that. I'm a big proponent, and I'll tell a lot of people the same. Can't thank you enough for the time, Dante. I will probably have you back on in a couple months or a year or so to chat some more. But for now, this has been great.
Awesome. Thank you, Omar. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and keep up the good work of the show.